it was really an international conference being held in Canada. But I think its time had come. Toronto is ready for something different.
Welcome to Tank Talks, a podcast that brings you insights and stories from some of the best and brightest minds in technology and investing. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner at Ripple Ventures. We welcome back to the Tank John Ruffalo to discuss the news and stories making headlines in the tech and venture capital ecosystem. Welcome back to the Tank, John. It's been a crazy week here. How are you doing?
Good, Matt. The nice sweltering heat is, I prefer this over the freezing temperature. So
I know we don't have anything in the middle here in Canada, but you know what? This was the last Collision conference that just wrapped up in Toronto. And as always, it was a scorcher. You know, I don't think I've been out this many nights in a row since I was in first year university at Dalhousie. I mean, man, am I getting old.
Yeah, me too.
You know, but this conference seemed to have gone off without a hitch and much controversy after having about a year of controversy surrounding it. You know, this was a multi-year stint in Toronto, packed with a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but now it's officially packing up and moving west to a new location, which obviously was widely speculated over a year ago by the media and by us as well, to Vancouver, where it will be rebranded as Web Summit Vancouver. So first off, you know, how was the Collision Conference impact, do you think, on the Toronto ecosystem from the very beginning, I believe in 2019 to where we are now?
I think that when it first came, and, you know, remember we had Elevate before this, but one of the differences on Collision is that it was really an international conference being held in Canada as opposed to a Canadian conference with international participation. So I think that it was the right conference at the right time to really help frame Canada, Toronto, et cetera, as a hotbed of activity. But I think its value and role, time had come. Toronto is ready for something different for the next stage.
It definitely felt like this was the best time to wrap things up and move it out, because it definitely was surrounded with a lot of controversy, a lot of government involvement, which is not great from a private perspective. And it felt like, you know, Toronto's ecosystem can stand on its own, hopefully, without something like this, and give Vancouver a chance to show off their tech ecosystem. I mean, what opportunities do you think this presents for the Vancouver ecosystem and then maybe the investors, you know, across the country?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Vancouver ecosystem has been rocked pretty hard as well. And I've spent a lot of time in the ecosystem, and there's some incredible gems of companies there. But it is still surprisingly fragmented. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for them to brand themselves. You know, the question that I would ask is this conference going to do what it thinks it's going to do? I am not so sure. You know, when I asked, you know, over the course of this week, I was at the evening activities, and just like you said, it was quite robust. But when I asked virtually every single person, were you at the conference? Everyone said no, which kind of tells you what the utility of the conference might be. So, you know, I hope it goes well for Vancouver, but I'm just not sure it's going to achieve what they think it might achieve.
Look, I mean, we moved our office out there with my partner, Dom, working from our new Vancouver office last summer. So we are seeing an incredible ecosystem bubbling up there at the early stage where we invest. But I think one thing that we're going to have to wait and see is, can the city actually take hold of what, you know, Toronto has always offered, which is a centralized place around a lot of social events and a lot of corporate partners coming into the ecosystem. I think the other thing, too, is that Vancouver doesn't necessarily have the same infrastructure that Toronto has. I was speaking with some people at Collision who work there, and they say, you know, there's no Airbnbs in Vancouver you can find. The hotel count is quite low. You know, the infrastructure to move around the city is not as good. So there are some things that hopefully they can figure out. Maybe the first year won't be the best year, but the convention center is where it's going to be hosted, and it's going to happen May 27th to 30th. So hopefully it will be a good one to start off, and we'll maybe you'll see you out there, John.
Maybe I'm a little bit dated on here, but I think Uber doesn't work out there still, does it?
No, I think it does.
It does now?
Okay. Yeah, it does.
There's a number of people that would say, Jesus Christ, my Uber didn't work there. Okay, all right.
Well, you know what? I feel like there was a lot of people waiting to announce a lot of things the week of collision. It felt like that because the headlines kept coming and coming. The big headline that we all knew about and was anticipating officially came out with TD Bank announcing their TD Innovation Partners, also known as TDIP, a full-service banking platform for technology entrepreneurs. As you and I both know, the team was made up of SVB Canada executives as well as RBCX combining together to create a new version of a private banking meets wealth management and tech solution. After obviously Silicon Valley Bank shut down, they took over some of the managing partners there, most notably Shez Samji, and now headed up by their business banking leader, Barbara Hooper. I guess the question is, how is TD Innovation Partners going to really differentiate itself from other competitors like RBCX and some of the other partners out there in the ecosystem?
The part of that's great news is TD Bank is now demonstrating how important the innovation ecosystem is to the bank. So I thought that was a very positive development, and more competition by the banks in this space is what we do need. One of the things, Matt, you and I had talked about when SVB went down, whether some of the poor competitive pricing and practices were going to reinsert themselves. And the only thing that was going to stop it is intense competition amongst the banks. So I think this bodes well. Differentiating one, frankly, is sort of tough, for the banks, in a variety of services. So, that will be challenging, but I don't think it's any different from any of the other services, whether it's investment banking or what have you. But Shay is a passionate contributor to the ecosystem, and he tells me that the senior leadership is very much behind this. So, kudos to TD Bank.
I'm very excited. I know that, obviously we work very closely with all the banks, most notably RBC, but we're really excited because, as you mentioned, it's always great to have competition for the founders and the startups out there. TD and RBC always go head to head. They're 1 and 2 all the time. I have, business accounts with RBC and I have personal accounts with TD, and I get to experience both of them. And I think it's great that our founders are going to have a choice out there. And I also agree with you. We've known Shez for a while. We've known the team there from both sides. They really care about the ecosystem, and they've been listening to the ecosystem for quite some time before officially announcing their launch. So I don't think they're really trying to rush it at all. They're trying to play for the long game. So I wish the team there the best, and excited to see what Shez and Tom and Michelle and Mark and the team over there have to do. Other news that came out this week that was pretty surprising, I guess, was the announcement of the retirement by Jerome Nycz from BDC Capital. After leading the BDC Capital business for over a decade, he kind of abruptly announced his retirement from Canada's largest and most active venture capital organization. So trying to figure out what happened here. We've been speaking with a lot of people as much as you have, but he kind of just announced the departure and kind of finished up, last week working for the firm. So anything here to note on? Was it a shock to you as well?
Yeah, I think it was a surprise to everyone, but people have to remember there's in any large organization, and any time there are changes of leadership at the top of the house, there's always cascading changes, and there's in many cases there's nothing egregious or different. Just people get to choose their teams. What the interesting part of this is, I think Jerome has been there for 22 years or something like that. Allison has left, and there was another retirement there. So there is a lot of institutional knowledge that goes away very quickly as well. And that's a challenge for any organization. But, it looked like a lot of people had, big support for Jerome. And I do wish him all the best in his next gig.
Yeah, definitely big shoes to fill. And as you say, it's sort of like the changing in the guard in a lot of different 20-year-old firms or more that are starting to see their leaders and patriarchs moving on to fill in shoes with a newer class of leaders. Hopefully we'll see. I have no speculation on who will be. They say right now the BDC CFO, Christian Satano, is assuming the role as interim. So we'll wait to see, but I'm sure the media will pick up on speculation here. We got to talk about AI. There was so much that we didn't get to cover the other week, obviously, because we were so busy with the conference and stuff. But I mean, Apple finally announced their Apple Intelligence product and killed probably about a dozen startups in the AI space at their WWDC one. I mean, there's Grammarly, Chegg. There's just so many of them that got just wiped out by this. I guess question for you is, one, what do you think the landscape is going to look like now post the announcement of Apple Intelligence and obviously the release of new phones coming out in September? And what are the implications of this new partnership between Apple and OpenAI mean for smaller AI startups?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. Taking your latter one first, I always do get anxiety on that, where you have large incumbents that have the power of their marketplaces stifling competition, and that is a very big worry. You don't like to get in the way, from a government regulation perspective, but you got to believe Linda Khan in the competition area of the United States is looking at that very closely. It feels like, again, when you start to see large tech support deep and expensive regulation and compliance, it's because they're the only ones who will be able to afford it. And that's what I worry when I see those sorts of partnerships. What was interesting on the announcements was that what I heard more was it was about time Apple actually disclosed anything as it related to AI. And it seemed to be almost a cynical response to Apple, in that Apple's been asleep at the switch here. So I do wonder, was this a reaction to all the criticism that they were taking, or this was a very conscious longer term strategy and they only released it until they got it right?
I'm going to take the latter. I think they slow played this on purpose. I think they wanted to see how much money was going to be thrown and what actually stuck from a consumer adoption perspective, not try to be the first, second, or third at the race, which ends up obviously being a better idea, because now they get to choose the best application or the best models to pick on, absorb that IP, monetize it through their distribution and their network and their walled garden, and then take a 30% take on any subscriptions that enter into OpenAI through their consumer application that Apple obviously gets 100% margins on. So I don't think they actually were probably that slow. Maybe the media was just enjoying that story, but you all know that they're always thinking about doing these types of things. I guess obviously everyone saw the news that Elon Musk put out that if anything gets embedded into the operating system that is external and then leaves to go to OpenAI data centers, they're going to ban all Apple devices from their from all of his companies. And there is that concern here of like, Apple obviously has always been a walled garden, and why people loved their closed ecosystem and why, they never gave up to law enforcement when they wanted to hack into some of their devices. They were obviously stopping, backdoors from happening on security breaches. But now you've got a third party like OpenAI, who's not probably the most loved by regulators and by, technologists from a security standpoint, now getting in bed with Apple, along with Microsoft on the other side. There could be a huge backlash against Apple potentially if people are very concerned about this. So that's the thing I would say. But, it's not that Apple is not fast moving. They're just not the first to react knee jerk.
They did it to BlackBerry. So
yep, they definitely did it to BlackBerry. And continuing on the OpenAI conversation, how could we not? But, co-founder Ilya Sutskever has finally left and launched his own new company that is focused on safe superintelligence. The company is called Safe Superintelligence, SSI, which is an American company, but he is a Canadian citizen, and he studied underneath Geoffrey Hinton at the University of Toronto that built AlexNet, which was the neural network focused on image processing with Hinton and Alex Krzyzewski, which was sold to Google in 2013. So it's really interesting. You've got this sort of like breaking apart of the creators of some of the most powerful technology, but who maybe didn't see eye to eye fundamentally on some of the commercialization, for-profit, not-for-profit. What are your thoughts here on this? Do you have any idea of what the plans are to ensure safety in AI development will look like if you started to create a company today versus what they learned from their time at OpenAI?
I mean, who knows? I was amused. I don't know if you saw the Elon Musk tweet that said that anybody that puts that in their name is usually far from the actual result, which sort of made me laugh. I mean, who knows? I mean, again, you have the two schools of thought. Of I think Aiden Gomez was interviewed very recently and just said like he's still saying that the doomsdaying cult of AI is one faction. You got the extreme libertarians that are another faction. I mean, I ascribe to the preserve as much on the innovative front as possible with guardrails in advance to the best that you can. It is a very delicate balance. So, I mean, I don't know. The one thing that is interesting, it's been almost acutely in the whole LLM space, the number of folks who are leaving, the famous companies that raised a huge amount of money and then spinning off and then raising a huge amount on their own. It just this is just still circulating. And at the end of the day, if there is only going to be about three players, my God, is there going to be a lot of dollars lost in this space?
I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. It feels like I'm watching an episode of like Melrose Place or General Hospital where there's just drama after drama after drama every single week we go by, but the pioneers of this that created a lot of value, a lot of wealth with Hinton and Yoshua Bengio. They are the ones sounding the alarm now about the threats of advanced AI and the systems and how it can pose to humanity and all these things. But all of these offshoots are just taking it one step further in different directions. And I'm kind of wondering, like, who is going to actually, yes, sounding an alarm is great, but who's actually going to say, I'm not actually going to create anything that can hurt humanity while also benefiting myself or people around me? It doesn't feel like that. This, exactly right, the name safe superintelligence is almost counterintuitive to what you think it ends up becoming. So I don't know. It just seems like the motivations are very different, though.
Yeah, and I just don't think we know what these uses will be. I mean, we're about to start the U.S. election, and we're going to see the social media issues and Gen AI from an immediate perspective. Again, we're going to start to see the unintended consequences. But I think that we still just don't know what's really going to happen here.
I mean, obviously, we all expected this too, but OpenAI continuing to show their true colors with Sam Altman telling some shareholders that they are considering changing its governance structure to a for-profit business. I mean, go figure, hitting a $3.4 billion run rate, you want to become a non-for-profit forever. I don't think that works. So again, like restructuring discussions are probably pretty fluid, and Altman has his decisions and directors have their decisions, but there's probably going to be a change of nonprofit to profit very soon.
I think it has to. And you'll watch. It's going to be a B Corp. That's what they're going to do.
It will be a B Corp, exactly. And then we'll see actually how much he really owns of the economics. Last but not least, your friend that you've known for a while, Raquel from Waabi, announced a big Series B financing round. Obviously in some pretty tough market conditions overall, but not maybe in the AI space. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Obviously, you've been following the story. You know them well. They announced I believe a $200 million Series B financing round backed by existing investors, Uber and then Coastal Ventures, as well as adding in NVIDIA and automaker Porsche, as well as retailer IKEA's investment arm, Inca Investments.
Huge kudos for Raquel. I mean, I was just chatting with her yesterday. And, the technology that is there and, pretty much ready to go. And the U.S. regulatory environment is embracing remote trucking in particular. It's a fascinating opportunity. I think there's really two competitors in the world that are vying at I forget the European one that just raised a whack of dollars recently. That's on the tip of my tongue. Raquel is very thoughtful in terms of where this is going to go. The names of the backers that she has is quite impressive. I mean, it is a little distressing, and I guess we should accept it that, under 10% of the dollars came from Canada. But I guess when we have big fundraisers like that, I guess we should expect it. But it always distresses me why we don't have in particular, more pension funds participating in great potential outcomes like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them out there. Obviously, people believe Tesla has their own version. Raquel is going for level 4 autonomy. I think Tesla's obviously trying to outpace that. There's Torque Robotics, there's Aurora Innovation, there's Enride. There are a lot of them out there. And I'm sure the big ones, even like the Volvo manufacturer and Mercedes-Benz group will have their own version of it. But Raquel's obviously doing things the way she wants to, building it out in Texas, I believe. And we'll see. But this is a great validation that they're moving in the right directions, as well as being supported by NVIDIA, as well as Uber Freight again.
And what I love, what she is doing, it's really the simulation as opposed to logging the millions of miles, the hard way. So it really feels like this is truly the AI solution to a big problem. So it's fantastic to watch, and I can't think of anybody more deserving than Raquel.
And just so listeners don't get too scared if they see a driverless truck barreling down the highway, these are beginning road testings with humans aboard in the public roads in Texas. So there's not just going to be a truck driving down the road with nobody inside of it, as we've seen with Waymo and all the other ones out there. But thanks for joining us in the tank today, John. Is always a pleasure. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tank Talks. We hope you found today's conversation as insightful as we did. If you're enjoying the show, we've got 3 quick things to ask of you. First, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. Next, follow us and stay up to date on upcoming episodes and behind-the-scenes content on social media with Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And lastly, share the love. If you found value in today's episode, share with a friend or colleague who'd benefit too. Your support helps us bring in more amazing guests and keeps the Tank Talks engine running. That's it for today. Until next time, keep disrupting and innovating.